Neeson did an interview promoting his movie Cold Pursuit and was asked where he drew his inspiration for his character, Seeking Revenge, from. And here's how he answered the question and how he clarified it.
Did you know who it was? No. What color were they? She said it was a black person. I went up and down areas with a cosh, hoping I'd be approached by somebody. I'm ashamed to say that. And I did it for maybe a week, hoping some black would come out of a pub and have a go at me about something, you know, so that I could kill him.
You sometimes just scratch the surface and you discover this racism and bigotry, and it's there. It was this primal hatred, I guess, that really, really shocked me when I eventually came down to earth.
So, well, how do you feel about the explanation?
Want to start?
No.
Well, okay, I will. I love it, and Liam, I feel bad that this happened, you know, this whole thing. But to me, it's like, you know, people have prejudices and bigotries in themselves. It doesn't mean they have to express them constantly. You know, there's this whole movement that every thought that you have has to come out. You know, I think that it's such an ugly thing to be racist or to be bigoted or to have these type of feelings in yourself. Keep them to yourself. You know, this morning I was walking to work here, and there was a dead rat in the street. A dead rat, which my husband said, we're never walking on the street again. And I thought the reason that dead rat is there is because they're doing excavation. Usually rats are under the building and you don't see them. That's where these things belong, in my opinion. There's something has been ignited in this country and around the world that people just feel free to say these horrible things to each other. And I think it's better to keep your big mouth shut.
For the most part, I agree.
But let me make an addendum. If it was a conversation, I'm not against conversations about race. I will go there. But I think it's difference between two Harvard professors or people who are intelligent people having conversation about the subject. That is instructive. But to just vent your venom and your hatred, and I will give him this, the guy was stressed out and probably in a very strange state of mind because of what happened to him. And, you know, his wife died unexpectedly.
But that's not, it's not
it's
connected.
Not an excuse.
I'm just making sure everybody realizes. What he says happened is let's be clear, he came back, and someone who was very, very dear to him told him that she had been raped. He asked her a whole bunch of questions, and he also asked her what the guy looked like. He went out then, in his rage, and it was a black man, and in his rage and anger, he went out to try to start a fight. That was the story he told. Now, this wasn't last month, this wasn't a year ago, this is 30 years ago he's talking about. So I hear what you're saying, but what he was doing was explaining where he got his
ability to act in these movies, the process?
What his process was. So he was not saying that. Listen, I'm just explaining because I want to make sure that it doesn't sound like you're calling him a racist.
No,
which I don't think that's what you're doing.
I'm not talking about him in particular. I'm talking about people venting these prejudices that lie there dormantly, and then everybody feels it's open season on saying terrible things about each other.
But I actually
that's what I don't like.
I'm glad he didn't cancel his appearance this morning on GMA because he easily could have and just shied away from it, and he didn't. And he addressed it, and I actually had a different reaction than you, Joy. I found what he said refreshing in a way and so not PC at a time when maybe the conversation doesn't need to be PC, because he admitted that he had problems. He admitted that he had thoughts that were bad and that he regretted, and that he said he got help for. And I think it's in these conversations, and Megan, you said this yesterday about just what the NFL's going through, it's the lack of these types of conversations that don't get us anywhere. And so seeing him out there on the morning show saying, I admit, I struggled, and I had these dark thoughts that you never want to admit publicly, but he was there admitting it and saying, I was wrong to feel that way. I actually found that at a time we're in, to not be PC, I found that helpful and maybe can move the conversation to a better place.
See, I didn't want to start the conversation because I'm so confused by what I heard and what I saw, because he was talking about how he processes his acting and how he taps into this rage. And he taps into this rage by going back to this feeling that he had when he found out that a dear friend of his was raped by a black man, and how he went searching through the black areas of Ireland to seek out a black man to harm. And I understand very well, I think, how you would feel if a loved one was harmed, and how you would want to harm the person that did that to them, the person that did that. What I can't understand is how you would go out and seek a random person of the same race to harm. Because that, for me, feels like a modern-day lynching. And that's what happened to black men in this country by white men somehow trying to be righteous about a white woman's virtue. And that really felt like my father could be walking down the street and someone would just attack him. And for Liam to still be using that experience as his inspiration to tap into
and to talk about it while he's promoting a movie.
I didn't understand. I still don't understand.
I think it's what it is it's if he had acted on it, it's a modern day hate crime. And the definition of a hate crime is a criminal offense against a person or property motivated in whole or part by an offer's bias against a race, religion, disability, sexual orientation, ethnicity, gender, or gender identity. So that if he had acted on it, he would be a person who had committed a hate crime. For some reason, I thought of Matthew Shepard in Laramie, Wyoming, which is a hate crime against a young gay. It's a really horrific, violent crime against a young man that is terribly graphic, and he was targeted because he was gay. And it happened in 1998. And I think sometimes when we're walking around, we think that, as you are all pointing out very well, that racism and bigotry and homophobia is something of the past. And I think we're sitting here today realizing that maybe we haven't come as far culturally, not only in our country, he's not an American, and again, it's his country as well, and in Europe and England, and that I think it's important to have conversations. I also think it's important to recognize it for what it is. We were speaking about Liam Neeson and his comments, and I was saying that although he was seeking out to act on this, he did not commit a hate crime. And it is good that he recognizes the deep darkness and offense and bigotry that was inside him at that moment and sought help and didn't, thank God, act on it.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm not gonna lie, there have been times when things have happened and I've gone directly to what someone is. Someone, whether you're driving a car and you look like, well, in the old days when I could still drive, you know, if you look like somebody that shouldn't have been driving, I cussed you out as that person. People walk around sometimes with rage. That's what happens. Is he a bigot? No, I've known him a pretty long time. I think I would have recognized. I've been around a lot of real bigots. You know, so I can say this man is not one. But let's remember back, 1984. Do you remember Bernard Getz?
Of course.
You know, people were calling the police to congratulate the subway vigilante. So let us not forget that we've seen this in other people and perhaps in ourselves. So you can't be surprised that somebody whose loved one is attacked, is angry and wants to go out and attack. What he did go on to say, which we didn't show you on GMA, is that he realized that it was too dark for him. He went and got himself help. And he's sort of found himself talking about this in a way that he was surprised to find. Because it wasn't something that he thought, well, this is the middle of the conversation. He told this story to someone, and it's in the thing. So
well, it has provoked a conversation at this table and in a lot of places. I just want to reiterate that I believe in constructive conversations about race at all times. I just don't think people should spew. That's my issue. There's a reason why people don't say those things in front of me, because they know I do not like that. I will not go there. And so, good, keep quiet. I don't want to hear it. That's where I'm at.
Well, if someone comes up to you and says something that's kind of off, but what do you do if you did something in your past? What do you do? If you say, here, this is what I did. So now, do you not say this is where I got to and I got myself out of it? Is that helpful? I never know because, you know, I walk a very crooked line sometimes. You know, I do because I'm not perfect. Sometimes I say stuff, sometimes I do stuff, and that's what happens. And I hear it when I do it on the show.
Can we forgive?
But I think actually, I mean, how much time do we have? Because clearly I'm messing this up today.
Yeah.
I think it's very important to have conversations. And there's another example is there was a man who's a member of, I believe, the KKK who reformed himself and now gives motivational speeches, on how he was sort of mentally taken to the place where he could commit the kind of actions he could. And I do think people can atone and people can reform. And I actually think that having open dialogue and not being scared to admit the error of your ways is important.
Yeah, and you know, there before the grace of God go all of us. There before the, you know. So you know what? Shake it off. Know that you will be better whenever you make yourself better. We'll be back.